Hey everybody, welcome to the Toy Box. Welcome to the video tour, Volume 2, and this is the second try at it, because now the basement is done. For the first time in my entire life, my entire collection is now out on display. So, I have a little bit better of a camera setup this time, so I can show a bit better as to what all is down here. As you can see, I've got all of my larger scale, or 6-inch, 5-inch size figures occupying all of the shelves down here. All the old Masters of the Universe and, Transformers, vintage Ninja Turtles. The big stuff and, as always, the good stuff. I'm also doing this video at a different time of day so that it's a little bit easier to see everything without having to rely on a flashlight or my crummy phone light. Continuing from the upstairs room, of course, the really big giant guys and the diorama stands and whatnot are still in the very back row. There are actually more figures in need of upgrading or replacements down here than there are in the upstairs room. Sadly, there are quite a few. Some of them you might be able to see, some of them maybe not. Speaking of not being able to see, you probably noticed a big black blotch in the above row. That's a bunch of ring wraiths from the original Fellowship of the Ring movie. They blend in pretty good. All of this racking is 6 foot high by 4 foot wide, and most of it is 18 inches deep. There is one rack we're going to get to that's actually 24. It used to be used for figures. I'm now using it for my vehicles, and wow, does that ever make a big difference, because walking around this room is quite difficult because of the centerpiece aircraft carrier, and having that big 24-inch rack, which used to be right here, made it really hard to film. I basically had nowhere to hold the camera except on my tippy toes, kind of half over my shoulder. It was not the best. Very, very happy with how this new layout has come to fruition. It's really quite spectacular. I really love it. It does get very hard to see these ones down here. I might take a couple of quick photos with the flash and try and get those to be a bit more visible. I'm going to intentionally take this pan shot from a bit further back so that the light glare doesn't overpower the camera. These are the most recent figures, of course. These are all still chronologically ordered for the most part. So 2016 through to 2017. And all the 2018s are down here. And you'll see those two figures standing right there, Rick Flag and the Green Goblin. I actually just picked those up yesterday. They're stand testing. Every time I get a new figure, to make sure it doesn't fall over on me, I put it on an empty shelf just to make sure that it doesn't give me any problems. As you can see, between the two figure racks, I've got all my Star Trek handheld weapons moved down here, and a couple of my playsets, my Point Dread and my Mortal Kombat Coliseum. Now, next to this figure rack, still over here, I've started with the vehicles. It starts with beasts and mounts, and then you're on to mechs, cybernetic creatures. Then I get into the Space Force. It's not dumb when I say it, only when the President says it. And then from spacecraft into aircraft, mostly jet aircraft. As you can see, little VTOL action going on there. And then down below, you start to get into a couple of the helicopters, as well as a few other jets and subsonic aircraft. There's even one that is a helicopter that turns into a jet, believe it or not. And now I'm bumped up against the aircraft carrier, but I'm going to show the next rack over. As you can see up top, Helicopter Central, and then we get into the ground vehicles. And this is the bulk of the vehicle collection. So this is difficult to film because of the carrier table, but I'm going to do my best. So I've literally got it so that, wheeled vehicles come first. And that's all of what these are, all on wheels. No treads or heavy equipment. And then I start to do the segue. So we've got half tracks, we've got things that convert from tread to wheels because they're toys, and yay. And then up here, on the final rack, I actually got some of my small play sets up on the top to give a real good view of them. They used to be underneath the aircraft carrier table, and it's very hard to see them. You couldn't even tell they were down there. Continuing with the vehicles, I've got all the motorcycles and all of my HISS tank fleet, which is the entire back row of this rack, and even a little bit of the front. The last of the heavy armored vehicles, and then we get into Navy and hovercraft. So I got some hovercraft, got some boats, got some hover bikes from Return of the Jedi. The last of the vehicles is just what was left over of the Navy. So I've got my my big hovercraft, including my built to rule, which is made out of Lego pieces. And in the very bottom, we've got a couple of the remaining play sets, ones that just don't work and they're up top. You got to see these things when they're down bottom, especially that Star Trek bridge. That's really something. Finally, the crown jewel, what I've been walking around this entire time, the aircraft carrier, the USS Flag. This thing is 89 inches long. That's 7 feet. That's about 2 meters. However you want to divide it up. It is completely full of nothing but G.I. Joe's aircraft. And of course, at the very front, the original 1983 Sky Striker that I got from my brother. It is the crown jewel on top of the crown jewel. I love that thing. Never parting with it. You can see all around the carrier as well. I'm going to recircle the room. I've got submarines and boats and whatnot, all again belonging to the G.I. Joe team, including that BTR, which is the Lego constructed. That's a little sub there next to the night landing raft. The carrier is in decent shape. It has a few cracks, a few scuffs. It's got a couple of missing pieces. On this side, it's harder to see, but there's a couple of small one-man hydro sleds and a raft there. And then on the other side, got another submarine and a couple of attack boats. Underneath the table, we swing around. I have the big play sets. I have Snake Mountain squaring off against the original vintage Castle Grayskull. I have both of my G.I. Joe headquarters butted up side to side, end to end, which looks really spectacular. And of course I have the 2013 Matty Collector Castle Grayskull, which is an amazing playset, something that I hope to get into some deep dive reviews for in the future. So this is it. After 22 years plus of waiting, I have finally done it. I have finally managed to get my entire collection out. Even the razor blade, which as you can see is hovering above the aircraft carrier, and not to be missed are also the Starfleet and other miscellaneous enemy vessels that are hiding in the ceiling. As you can see, the Romulans and the Klingons are always at war in my collection. So, always plenty to see, and there is nothing like coming here in person and seeing this. It is awe-inspiring. I have yet to have a guest in the home who isn't just completely floored by the size of this thing. So everybody, I hope you like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you out there in Toyland.